welcome back to the Shutdown. I'm your host, Aiden, also known as Bradenton Mayhem, and welcome back to the Shutdown, where we'll be talking all things Bradenton and PRO Superstar Shootout for the crazy weekend that was this weekend. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I want to start off with saying what a weekend this was in Bradenton for the sport of drag racing. This is drag racing's biggest W they've had in a long time. And I can't help but feel very proud of what everyone managed to accomplish in the sport this weekend. I mean, the whole sport, Drag Illustrated, Pro, Bradenton Motorsports Park, everyone just did an incredible job this weekend. I mean, that place was packed. And this goes back to kind of what I said in the last episode, the fact that Bradenton's such a small track only adds to that atmosphere down in Bradenton. And smaller tracks do feel different when you attend them, especially big events at a very small drag strip. They are like the best. I went to Cecil County for the Yellow Bullet Nationals last year, and it is, I can tell you, small tracks definitely do feel completely different and totally way better, honestly, than the bigger venues that usually sometimes sit half empty because they were overbuilt. But Bradenton, let's just start off with, there's so much you can talk about this, but let's start off with the content on social media. Flow Racing and Drag Illustrated, that was the best social media I've ever seen for a drag racing event ever. They killed it. Everything fans have been asking for, myself included, they did. They did better than any drag racing series out there. They did way better than... I mean, I would say that was up there with NASCAR in some levels in terms of social content. Content with every driver, build up to the race, live updates during the race. They just did incredible. And Flow Racing, too. The broadcast this weekend was phenomenal. That was better than NHRA TV. And Flow Racing is around the same price as NHRA TV, and you get way more stuff besides just one particular sport on Flow Racing. So, I will say Flow Racing did way better. The audio on the broadcast was so good. Ralph Sheeman and Jack Beckman, I think his name's Ralph Sheeman, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ralph Sheeman and Jack Beckman were the two color commentators and analysts for this race, and they did an incredible job this weekend. And Beckman was super informative too. That was one thing, because there was probably a lot of people watching this event who haven't seen drag racing before. And Jack Beckman and Ralph Sheeman were probably the two best people that they could have put in front of all these people to get them informed with the way things work in drag racing. And the audio on the broadcast was phenomenal too. And I do say, I'm going to say audio is very important for drag racing. It is a sport centered around audio. When you go to the track in person, or if you take someone to the track in person and you ask them, what did you think about your first time? I'll guarantee you they're going to tell you one of two things. Wow, that was loud, or wow, that was loud. In fact, it's just one thing. They're not going to tell you anything else. It's just, wow, that was loud. That's the first thing they will tell you. They're not going to say anything else. They're not going to remember anything else. They're just going to say, that was loud. That's what they all say. So I feel like the audio should be prioritized in a lot of areas, especially if you're looking at NHRA TV. I do think that should be improved upon because the audio makes a lot of it what it is. But Flow Racing, again, all the content leading up to the race. Now let me just say, the hype going into this race, that didn't just happen magically. It didn't just come out of nowhere. Oh, this is a big race all of a sudden. No, they built that. Flow Racing, Drag Illustrated, they built that into what it is. So I don't want to hear that you can't build a driver up and all that. You can't build stars. You can't, we need to stop leeching off stars that are, been retired for 50 years. That's why I see a lot what they do in other motorsports, NHRA especially. They love talking about Don Gross. They love talking about Shirley Muldowney and all those stars. And there's nothing wrong with them, but their time is up. You gotta get the new guys a chance, and I don't want to hear that you can't do that. You don't want to hear that you can't promote the newer generation of drivers because Flow Racing just did it. Everything that drag racing fans have been asking for, Flow Racing did it this weekend. So, not to say that everything about this event was perfect, because I will say one thing that I didn't particularly like, in my opinion, was the downtime. The NHRA Safety Safari is the best in the business. They've spoiled us for the longest time. I mean, the prep for Nitro cars this weekend, it was 30 minutes. That was it was a ridiculously long time. Whereas with NHRA, it's usually 10 minutes at most. I don't even think it is 10 minutes. I've never properly timed it, but it's not really that long to prep for a Nitro session or going from Nitro to Pro Stock. So that is one thing that I will take away from this weekend in terms of the on-track proc, is the track prep. But I will say in our sport, the on-track proc's never really been the actual problem. It's been everything around it. And this weekend packaged it. Because if you look at it on paper, let's just look at it on paper. Nothing at this race you could find everything at this race at a national event. It's not like this race had some crazy exclusive thing that a national event didn't have. Everything at a national event was here. It was just packaged different, and packaged different in a way that the younger generation likes, the way that more people consume content these days. I mean, they had people on the starting line shooting, on the wall shooting. video footage that's all over YouTube. I mean, if you add up all the video views in the overall, including Cleese McFarland's video, which, by the way, Cleese McFarland on Clay Millican's car, that was awesome. That probably got, I mean, if you look at those videos Cleese uploads, that video that he put up with Clay Millican's car on the dyno, that got more views than the U.S. Nationals did last year. So I don't want to hear that it's not working. If you add up all the views overall from all those videos, it's probably more than most NHRA races in our air on Fox and the views that they get on Fox. So to say that this race didn't expose the sport to new people, it certainly did. And I think that the Professional Racers Organization, Drag Illustrated, and everyone involved should be very happy with themselves for what they accomplished this weekend. Assuming that there's going to be another one, and believe me, I very much think there will be. They didn't just go and invest all this money into Bradenton for there not to be another one. So there's probably going to be another one, and I expect it to only get better because they knocked it out the park. Remember, this is their first chance of doing this, and they did so well. And yes, there was some... It wasn't 100% perfect, like I said, the track prep, but even everything else, it wasn't like 100% perfect. But remember, this is their first time doing it, too. It's not like they've done this 100 times. They can have a bit of leeway there, whereas other series don't because they do it all the time. So that's just something I want, like, other racing series, more specifically the NHRA, to take note on, is all that other stuff that they did around the event. And I hope they do, because they certainly were, believe me. They certainly were paying attention to everything that happened this weekend. But I just hope that the NHRA learns from this and other drag racing series learn from what happened this weekend and maybe collaborate, work together, and let's make this sport the biggest sport in the world like I believe and everyone else who follows the sport believes it should be. On to the actual winners now. Erica Enders wins in Pro Stock. I mean, are we really surprised about this? I mean, Erica Enders, I'm going to say, she is the greatest Pro Stock driver of the modern era. And I don't think it's really fair to compare it to Bob Glenn, because again, that's a totally different era. Equipment was so much varied and all that. But Erica Enders of the modern era, she's the best Pro Stock driver in the modern era. And I think the championship's proven. I think this only adds to her legacy too. $125,000 richer. She had to go against David Quadra first round, then went against Aaron Stanfield. Then the semifinals faced Jeg Coughlin Jr. And the finals faced Dave Connolly, where she took the win. And, I mean, what kind of momentum is this for the season? I mean, $125,000, that's a lot of money you can spend on your program. It's a lot of money you can use to go testing. Not that they really need it, but that is a lot for that team. And I definitely think that they will be taking advantage of all that extra money and all this extra data they got this weekend to only be better during the NHRA season. On to Funny Car, where the main story of the weekend happened. Bob Tasca, 341 miles an hour. Wow. I mean, when I first started watching the sport back in 2012, 320 was considered like a good run. Like if you went 320, like you were like on top of the world. But 341, like oh my god, like I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that's actually like possible that a human controlled that. But unbelievable. And the winner is Austin Prock, which is kind of sad that Austin Prock's probably going to get left out a lot of this, because I have a feeling more people are going to remember the Tasca run from this event than they will Prock. But I'm going to give Prock his due right here real quick. Austin Prock wins the event. First time this man competed in an event in Funny Car. He did license in Funny Car and did make some probably testing runs in a Funny Car before. But first competition in a Funny Car, wins. I mean, he's getting in the best seat in the NHRA. That car is the best seat in NHRA. I don't care what anyone says, all the other rides, especially in Funny Car where there's not that many cars that are top-level cars compared to Top Fuel. So that is definitely the best seat in NHRA. With Jimmy Prock behind the car, like, no way that car doesn't win races during the NHRA season. I mean, he already has won a race this season, but during the NHRA season, that car is definitely going to be expected to win races and run up front immediately. And Prock with his reaction times, too. I mean, in Funny Car, usually the reaction times, they're not as good as the reaction times in Top Fuel in terms of, like, an overall driver base. Yes, I know that sometimes the Funny Cars react slower than the Top Fuel cars do, but aside the point, Prock is still one of the best levers in drag racing. You put him in a Funny Car where everyone else is kind of a little bit behind him in terms of reaction time, you'll get results like that, especially if you put him in the best car too. But back on to Bob Tasca's 341 miles an hour, like, absolutely. I mean, there was some controversy around it, because at first, during the week, Antron Brown, in particular, made a 339 mile per hour pass, and CompuLink went and looked at it and said the run was invalidated because they were doing something with the beams. Again, I'm not like a super nerd on this. I don't know the 100% factor of how the CompuLink system works. But they said there was something wrong with the system and the run wasn't legitimate. But this run, even though it's not going to count officially towards the NHRA world record, let's kind of get that out of the way first. This is not going to be an official NHRA world record because it didn't happen in NHRA national event, and that's a good thing. I don't want people being mad about that because the longest field goal in the NFL shouldn't be some guy who did it on a practice squad. Like, it should have to happen during an official NFL game, and in this case, an official NHRA national event, which it probably will this season. I mean, I don't think they're going to see conditions like they saw in Bradenton, so I doubt it's going to go 341, but I do see it happening at some point during the NHRA season. And Tasca, if they didn't spin the tires in near, I believe the Tasca social media person posted what happened on social media. I'm not a mechanical person, so I couldn't exactly quote what happened. Something went wrong with the car, which caused it to spin the tires and basically go right towards the wall pretty much. But if that didn't happen, I think Tasca wins the race. He was by far the most consistent car that weekend, despite not being the fastest. Had a little bit of trouble during one of the qualifying sessions, but he still got around it. But 341 miles an hour, I mean, I thought it was illegitimate when I first saw it. I couldn't believe that it happened, but I still, oh man, that is crazy that happened. And I feel like people in drag racing do sometimes dwell on the mile per hour way too much, especially since races are won by ET. But in this situation, that's probably the last major milestone in drag racing, in nitro drag racing, to be broken, and it just was. I mean, I think the next one is got to be 3.5 seconds in a top fuel car. I mean, everyone's going to tell me that's not going to happen, but then again, people back in the 1960s were saying that we would never hit 300 miles an hour, and look what we're doing now. So I think that's going to be the next milestone that everyone's going to try and shoot for in nitro drag racing. But Austin Prock, funny car winner, it's crazy to believe, $250,000 richer too. That, they are paying out lots of money for this, and I guarantee you the exposure for this and the money will do really good with JFR. And it'll get him ready for the NHRA season coming up in Gainesville, which is only 1 month away. On the top field, where Doug Coletta is $250,000 richer and wins the first annual PRO Superstar Shootout. I mean, I'll be honest, I did not expect, of all people, Doug Coletta to win this race. This did not seem like a Doug Coletta event to win, but it was this weekend. Again, this whole weekend's been incredible, but Doug Coletta beats Clay Milken in the final round. Clay Milken ran the Cletus McFarland Top Field Dragster. I still think that was so cool that they did that, and thanks to Clay Milken and team for probably putting so much eyes on us. But like I said, that video got as much views as the U.S. Nationals did last year on Fox. So definitely that team did a lot, and Doug Coletta even too, winning a Top Field championship for the first time in his career in November to coming back immediately and start winning. How about momentum for that team? Talk about momentum. They are going to be ready to start Gainesville. And even Clay Milken too. They brought Nicky Bonifani from Alexis DeJoria's team over to Clay Milken's team, and I think that has done massive parts to their program. I mean, even normally Clay Milken would struggle at certain times of the sessions, sometimes in those quick throwdown sessions, and they would struggle. But this time, on the other hand, it was hot and it was cool, and they still did really good this weekend, and Clay Milken was on a roll, that whole team. Some other mentions, Steve Torrance, Billy Torrance, and Brittany Forrest did not make the show. Again, this is an 8-car field, so don't look at that as it's necessarily a super negative. But, I mean, wow, that's still kind of crazy. That's a good thing about doing 8-car shows, is that not everyone can get in. It makes qualifying super, super important. And I probably forgot to mention, Ron Capps also didn't qualify in funny car either, so that's another big name that didn't make the field. But Clay Milken went into eliminations as number 1 qualifier, made it all the way to the finals against Doug Coletta, where Doug Coletta inevitably went home and took him the money. Leah Pruitt, this is not technically. It was supposed to be Leah Pruitt's final running a top field car, but she is running the Gatornationals All-Star Call-Out, so she'll be doing the All-Star Call-Out in Gainesville, where then Tony Stewart will take over after that point. Justin Ashley, his first race in the SCAG colors as well. Justin Ashley had a okay run, obviously. You can't really, that race and qualifying, that whole bracket was just it's kind of hard to really judge off of this, because this whole, honestly, any one of those 8 cars could have won the race. That's kind of what I like about doing 8-car fields personally, is that feels so competitive. And it kind of goes to show that you don't need 16 cars. Car count isn't everything. And I know that's something that a lot of people push on social media. Back in my day, there were 67 cars in Indy, yada, 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 yada. That race kind of proves you don't need that many cars to have a good drag race. I don't think anyone who went to that race in person is going home saying, oh, I'm disappointed there was only 8 cars that ran in eliminations. So I definitely think that that's something that should be noted, is that Like, I mean, 8-car fields, and it's not. I honestly didn't really notice, like, when I was watching. I'm not sitting there like watching. Oh, there's 8 less cars. I'm gonna stop watching. Like, no, it was a pretty good race, and finally, if anything, it made the eliminations more competitive and qualifying more competitive because of it only being 8 cars. And for the ones who didn't qualify, they did the Top Fuel versus Funny Car Shootout, which was they did a Chicago-style shootout. Which, if you don't know what that is, basically you'll run like all the cars, all the total cars at first. You'll take the quickest ETs, you'll take the 2 quickest ETs, and you'll match them together. So what they did is they ran the Top Fuel versus Funny Car thing. They took the quickest Top Fuel car, quickest Funny car, and matched them together of the ones who didn't qualify, and they ran a race, and Chad Green took the win. Funny Car takes down the kings of the sport, and that's kind of crazy. I mean, the last time they did that, I believe, was 2000. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that was pretty cool. He faced Steve Torrance in that run too, which again, that's still crazy that Steve Torrance did not qualify for this race. But I mean, yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, is it like something that we need every single week? No, but it was pretty cool. I don't really think, again, maybe they could have did the staggering a little bit better, because I do think that the funny cars were still kind of at a disadvantage. But I do think that it was a cool deal, and it was something cool to do that you could have just sent those guys home. But no, they had them still put on the race and put on a show for the fans. So either way, it was a good weekend for all those teams, even if you didn't make this show. I mean, again, there's nothing disappointing about not making these fields. These fields were super competitive. I mean, there was, like I said, Steve Torrance, Brittany Force, probably the 2 most dominant drivers of the past 5 years, didn't make the show. So there's nothing, like, bad about not making this show. So to kind of just end it all off, this weekend's going down in drag racing history. And I just hope that the sport takes this weekend and learns from it, and we can grow into much more bigger and better things as the sports life cycle goes on. But Gainesville's only a month away, so I mean, again, it's kind of bad we have to wait a month for more drag racing, but again, one month away until we go back to Gainesville, and that's going to be awesome for the Gatornationals. Gatornationals are always awesome. It's going to be a great way to kick off the season. I'm so glad that NHRA decided to make Gainesville the season starter. They did do that right. They made Gainesville the season opener over Pomona. I'm sorry, Pomona does not deserve to be the opening race. I don't care about the history. I don't care. Does not deserve to be a season opening race in 2023. Until Pomona has like sellout crowds like Gainesville does, don't care. Gainesville's the season opener in my eyes and always will be. So it's going to be great to see who wins down in Gainesville. My picks for Gainesville, I'm going to make some very early picks for Gainesville. I believe Tony Schumacher is going to get the win in Gainesville. He had a decent run at the pro race, made to the second round, or semifinals, I guess, if you want to call it that. And my pick for funny car would be, I'm going to be honest, Bob Tasca. I think Bob Tasca is going to get it done in funny car as well. I mean, if you want to actually, there is a drag race bracket bonanza. You can download it on, I think, Google. I don't know if they have it on Google Play yet, but you should be able to download it on Google Play soon. It's a fun bracket, sort of like March Madness bracket pick game where you can pick all the brackets for the national event weekends, and that's going to be really fun to follow all season long. But yeah, we're going to get into Gainesville only 1 month away, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys in the next episode of the Shutdown, which we will be either previewing or recapping Gainesville. I'll have to decide at that time when I do. But I will see everyone here in the next one. Thank you, guys.